So welcome. Some of you, I think, are on for the third time tonight, some for the second, and some for the first. So we're excited to have you no matter where you are in this little series. This session really is geared more towards questions that you have tonight. We're calling it Financial Aid Uncensored. So any questions that you want to ask. So the agenda is a pretty short one. It's just the welcome. And then again, this one's all on you, questions and answers. And if you don't have a lot of questions and answers, I will be prepared to do a little short timeline just so that there's something going on here tonight. And then we'll wrap up. Again, I'm Tracy Pavon. I am the Assistant Vice President for Enrollment and Financial Aid. I have been working for Simpson for just over 30 years. And before that, I was a student at Simpson myself. So I have that experience. And then my oldest son graduated from Simpson about 4 years ago, and he is gainfully employed in his major. So I'm excited to tell you that hopefully the dividends continue to pay for him and for your students as well, or for you if you are the student. So again, we're going to turn this over to you guys tonight. It's your turn, ask away, and you can either unmute yourself and fire a question away, or just type it in the chat box if you're more comfortable. Maddie will be emceeing that chat box for questions for me and helping me out tonight. I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So we'll open it up for questions. Feel free to ask. I'm going to go ahead and move to the timeline. Maddie will interrupt me if she sees something or holler. Just in case you didn't have a lot of questions and answers, I did want to go through a little bit of a timeline tonight. And this timeline is fairly specific to Simpson. But some of it is generic, but to another school as well. Or, if you were looking at another school, we hope not. But so right now is the time to file that FAFSA. I did take a look at who was registered tonight, and I think almost all of you have done the FAFSA. But if you haven't, this is the time to do the FAFSA. It is not bad at all. People dread it, but once you do it, it's just really not that hard. You will complete it. Listing Simpson College is one of the schools that you want to receive it. And our federal school code is 001887. Don't feel like you have to write that down because there is a drop-down menu when you're filling out the FAFSA where you can choose Simpson College from Iowa. Just make sure you choose the Simpson College from Iowa, as there is a Simpson University in California. We have a lot of people make that mistake from time to time. Be sure that the student has completed the application for admission and done everything they need to do. And then in that timeline, and most of your students have already been accepted, but I'm going to go through this anyway. Once you are accepted, actually upon your acceptance to Simpson, you will learn of your academic scholarship. It's right in your acceptance packet, right in that folder. You'll learn of your academic scholarship, which is a 4-year scholarship. We want you to visit Simpson. We are doing virtual and in-person visits at this time. We are taking visits very safely. We are social distancing and mask wearing, and we feel that it's a very safe environment for students. So we'd love to have you in person if you can. While the campus, some people are working remotely over the next month, we are open for business, and we would love to have you. The Simpson College Office of Financial Aid. So my office is going to begin following up with students for additional needs in terms of paperwork, and we've already started that. So if we have your FAFSA and you were selected for federal verification, you, the student, are going to receive a letter in the mail, or maybe already have, requesting additional information. And it's the information that the federal government requires us to get, things like your tax returns and a verification worksheet to verify that your FAFSA is accurate. If we have any paperwork needs, we've already sent those letters out to you, or we do as soon as we receive your FAFSA. So tomorrow, Friday, December 11th, and weekly thereafter, we will start mailing financial aid packets. And tomorrow we are mailing roughly 550 packages in the mail. So this is the big run and the big push. So start watching that mailbox. You could get them, as soon as Monday, I would think, possibly even if you're local on Saturday. Again, be sure that you're following up with any requests from the financial aid office. So if we're requesting additional information from you or your child, it is because the federal government is asking us to. So you may have additional needs. About a third of all applicants need additional information submitted. So don't let that alarm you. If you do, it doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Then from Simpson, since those packages are going out, you can expect a phone call or a meeting invite. I think that Maddie was just explaining to me there's going to be some scheduling opportunities where they'll send you times that you can schedule with your admissions counselor to review your financial aid package in detail. And this is to go through piece by piece what's in the packet, how much you owe, how much you have in scholarships and grants, and how much you have in loans and work study, okay? And I always make sure this is a great time for mom and dad to join on the phone call. And as soon as you get that financial aid packet, this sounds kind of corny, but as soon as you get it, put it on your kitchen counter or your table or your desk, whatever's easiest for everyone to get at, and put a blank piece of paper there and just jot down your questions as you think of them, because sure enough, you're going to forget when your counselor calls, okay? We do still have special scholarships that we have not awarded. And those are, for the most part, due February 1st. There's a whole web page of those. So those are things where students might have a special interest, like we have the John C. Culver Center on our campus. So if they have interests in politics, they may be interested in that. We have speech, debate, mock trial scholarships. We have the Carver Social Justice Scholarship. So there's a lot of different scholarships that applications are due February 1st. Next, if they want to audition or submit a portfolio for one of the fine arts, so a music scholarship, a theater scholarship, or a graphic design scholarship, they need to be preparing to do that. We do send letters out to students that we know are interested in the fine arts weekly, telling them, here's who you contact to set that up. So make sure they do that. And there is not a deadline on that. Typically, we have that same February deadline. But we know that COVID-19 has made it very stressful for students to get those portfolios and music auditions and theater auditions scheduled. So we are being flexible. I think flexible is the motto for the year. Also, make sure that you're checking with your high school guidance office. And between February and May, there's going to be a lot of announcements about scholarships, local scholarships, or dollars for scholars, or things through your alumni association. Make sure you're applying for those, because all of those things will just be on top of your financial aid packet from Simpson. So again, we're going to come back to questions. Like I said, I didn't have a whole lot tonight prepared because I wanted this to be your chance to ask questions. So again, unmute yourself, ask away if you have anything you want to ask, or you can type it in the chat box.
All right, you ready for this onslaught?
I'm ready.
Okay, awesome. We have tons of questions in the chat, so I'm just going to go in order in which I've received them. The first question is, what is the deadline for requesting a FAFSA appeal and or professional judgment override?
Wonderful. There is no deadline on the appeal or override of the FAFSA. So we talked about that in the last session. There's no deadline because situations can change at any time. So if you are in a situation where maybe you just lost your job, you're going to wait a little bit to settle into that to make sure. There is absolutely no deadline on that. We are still doing professional judgment overrides right now for the current school year for students who are with us already. So there is no deadline. That's pretty wide open.
Awesome. Someone wanted to know how they are able to get the professional override form that you talked about in previous calls.
Yep. So I just put up a new slide with the FinAid at simpson.edu and my email address, tracy.pavon. If you just send me an email and say I need the professional judgment or the special circumstance override, whatever you want to call it, I'll know. I'll send that to you. And I am out of the office till Monday, so I'll send it on Monday.
How does Simpson handle or distribute their need-based aid versus the merit-based aid?
Perfect. So the need-based aid is, we can't get to that till we get the FAFSA. So early on, you get that scholarship notice. And then when I review each student's financial aid packet, we have a formula that we're looking at that considers how much need we're going to be able to meet, and we package it automatically. There are no additional applications other than the FAFSA for the need-based aid.
For families that qualify for Simpson Promise, is there a deadline to accept that offer?
So your deadline to accept all of your offers for the most part, and this is nationally, is going to be May 1st. That is what we call the national candidate reply date. Some colleges will want you to reply sooner unless you are a part of like a Division I, Division II, or NAIA scholarship. You do not need to reply sooner than that. May 1st is the national deadline. And that's when we want you to make a decision by.
Would you be able to walk through what is specifically in the financial aid packet that would be different from what parents get in the FAFSA? And is there a possibility to get the timeline that you talked about, a copy sent out to people who have attended this?
We can send those 2 slides absolutely on the timeline to you all. Again, it will be Monday or after because I'm not in the office. So the packet is going to be a folder, and it's going to be forms numbered 1 through 5 for everyone. Some students will have a 6, and some students will have 2 other forms, and I'll explain that. You're going to have copies of the financial aid. So our folder, I love it. It's pretty well laid out, I think. When you open the folder on the inside right-hand panel, there's going to be a checklist of, okay, you want to come to Simpson, you're set to go. Make sure you do this, check this, this. And we label all of our forms up in the upper right-hand corner. So when we talk about a form, we make sure and tell you, hey, this is Form 1, this is Form 2. So you'll have a copy of your student's individual financial aid package. You'll have a really awful, like 20-page brochure that I wrote. It's terrible. It's guaranteed to put you to sleep, but it's everything you need to know. So read it in chunks. It's good information. And it's the financial aid handbook. It's labeled number 2, I believe. That is going to give you very specific guidelines. Like if you have a presidential scholarship, here's what you have to do to maintain that. If you are a freshman, this is how much you can borrow. If you're a sophomore, this is how much you can borrow. And it's just very, very good detailed information. Some of it will be a little overkill, but it's what we're required to tell you in terms of federal government. Form number 3 is a brochure that will take you through, okay, what's left to pay and how do I break that apart? How do I pay what's left? And it's going to give you several options. Form number 4 is the loan information form. So anybody who wants to borrow will have to complete that. Form number 5 is an opportunity for them to report to us other outside scholarships that they receive. So earlier I said, between February and May, they're going to want to be checking with the guidance office. Let's say they get a Dollars for Scholars scholarship. They would just let us know on that form and send it back to us, and we'll add it right to their financial aid package. We want to get it added before they enroll so that their bill's correct. And when we bill, we don't bill for any pending financial aid that we know is going to arrive at some point. Okay. Form number 6 will only be included if the student was awarded or was offered a job on campus, and that's the application for employment. And then if the student is a music major, they will get a very specific form that tells them about the music fees, because there are additional music fees, and we want to be 100% transparent when we present the financial aid offer. And then if they are Simpson Promise, they will have a Simpson Promise agreement that tells them, again, very specifically what it does cover and what it doesn't cover. So everything is in that packet, and it looks much different than the FAFSA. Your financial aid packet will be different from every school. We all present them differently. Again, we get a lot of compliments on ours that it's pretty easy to follow. So,
could you talk a little bit about the Red and Gold Scholarship Days? What specifically are they? And can you give a general idea of what a student could expect from the day and what a parent could expect from the day?
Absolutely. So the Red and Gold Scholarship Days look a little different this year, just like everything else. So we're doing them virtually for the most part. We will offer some in-person sessions for, we had a lot of students, not a lot, we had several students at our first one who had already booked flights when we decided to go virtual. So we did an in-person event for them. But your students will, either virtually or on campus, they're going to have an interview with a small panel who are going to score them on their interview. And they are also going to write an essay. It's a timed essay. And they have, I believe, 3 subjects to choose from. The day for parents, there will be some informational sessions from our career planning and placement office, and myself, I will do a session. You'll hear a little bit from admissions. I don't know for sure. There may be a tour that day if you are on campus, but it does look a little different virtually. All of those scores then, all of the essays go off to a professional scorer, and that scorer will actually return scores to us. And the interviews are scored as well. And then those are all put into a spreadsheet, and students are rated 1 through 150 or however many people we have at the event. Pardon me. So that's how that looks. I, as a parent, think it's a great experience. A lot of them haven't had an interview. They get a little nervous about this, like this to this point. So it's a wonderful experience for them. And I hope that answers your question.
Just from a counselor perspective, I always have students that, ask like, how can I prepare? What can I do? Just from a parent perspective, it would be great, if your student has never had a formal interview, like a big job interview or anything, just do a mock interview with them and kind of be able to practice things like eye contact and, speaking clearly and, full and complete thoughts and those types of things. The questions are really more about the student and just getting to know them a little bit better. So again, the more that they're able to clearly describe and talk about how, their unique experiences they've had or what they like about school, what they're hoping to achieve in college, those types of things. The questions aren't, anything crazy. But I think the hardest thing is just being intimidated by an interview situation. So if you can kind of do a little practice with your student, that's going to be really helpful for them. Okay, a couple other questions. How would we handle a situation when we receive the financial aid packet, but it just isn't enough? Is there a way to work one-on-one with anyone at Simpson so that they could make attending Simpson a reality?
This is where the phone call with your counselor is going to be very, very important. Your counselor is trained to ask the appropriate questions to determine, is there anything there that could be a special circumstance that we need to look at that we don't know of? Are there additional scholarships that Simpson offers through those special programs, or that we know about national scholarships that we can help direct the student to? And also, and I say this as a parent, and I do not say this to diminish that question. Obviously, higher education is a huge investment. I have my first granddaughter, and for Christmas, the only thing she's getting from her grandma is a deposit to her 529 plan. So we have to plan for that expense. But we know that it is a big expense, and many families have not been able to plan appropriately, including myself with my 3 kids. So I feel like we can really help you try to break that down. Like I always say, you kind of have to rob from Peter to pay Paul, and I do feel your pain. So I feel like I became kind of really good at, okay, how am I going to break this down? You can put a little on a payment plan. Maybe you can earn a little over the summer for some. Maybe you apply for an outside scholarship. Maybe you put a little bit on a loan, and before you know it, you're getting there. So this is where it's really helpful to have that phone call with that admissions rep. They are in communication with me daily. Like I said, we're having almost 600 awards go out tomorrow. So there's only one of me, but there are several of them. And so they will get to me if they have questions and such. And hopefully that will help. But certainly have open conversations with your admissions rep.
Would you be able to talk about the eligibility and who is able to attend a Red and Gold Scholarship Day?
I can. I'm going off the top of my head, and we did change the requirements a little bit this year due to really very few students taking standardized tests or submitting them scores. So I wish I had that right in front of me. I believe if you have a 3.75 or better, you are invited. If you are a valedictorian, you are invited. And then for students who did submit a test score, if their test score is high enough, along with their GPA, they are also invited. We're pretty strict on who we invite to that day. It's fairly selective and definitely more selective than some of our peer institutions. And we know that, but we just really want to keep it pretty elite. Now, I did have a question Tuesday night from a parent whose student was just a tiny bit shy of that GPA, but they thought the student might make the GPA after their fall semester grades coming up here soon. And if that is your student's case, reach out to your admissions counselor, send us that transcript, and we'll invite them right away. So we'll continue to review eligibility for those nights, for those days.
Perfect. If the student is eligible for a work-study job as a freshman, how would they find the job? How do they apply for work-study?
So to begin with, we have about 600 students that work for us on campus. Far more want to work than we have jobs, typically. So to begin with, they had to indicate on the FAFSA that they were interested in a job. And not everyone who indicates will get a job. We go in the receipt order of FAFSAs. So we fund them until we run out of jobs, and we stop. They will fill out the employment application, which will tell us a little bit about their experience. If they're awarded a job, they'll fill that out, telling us a little bit about their past experience. Some of them we know haven't had a job before, but some of them have different experiences. Maybe they're a lifeguard, or maybe they've done a lot of filing in a clerk's office. And then we place them into positions. The work-study jobs on campus do pay minimum wage, so $7.25 an hour. The students are working very few hours. My students work between 4 and 6 hours a week. We know that they are there to be a student first, and many, many of them are there to be an athlete or a musician or a member of the theater department or something else second, and then a job third. Our jobs on campus will pay $1,500 over the year, and we do not take that off of the bill. We just pay them just like if they worked at Target in town. So it's their paycheck to do what they want with. That way, if they don't work the hours they need to, you don't owe more money. And I always like that. My kids have all had jobs on campus over the years. And it gives them some spending money to budget. Like, that's your money. If you want to go get pizza, that's your money. If you want to, fill up your tank or whatever. And it's not a lot, but they don't need a lot of money when they live on campus. So.
There is someone who has a question about 529 plans. So I would invite that parent to go ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to ask your question.
With the 529 plan, how does the money transfer? Like, does the 529 plan require a receipt from the school, or can it just be, I know like it talked about how it could be transferred into like our checking account and then we could pay the bill from there, but how does that all work?
Okay, so I will tell you they are all different, all the 529 plans. And the business office at Simpson handles them more. But for the most part, your 529 plan will just take a copy of your bill. And I think the Iowa plan will either issue it to the owner of the plan or the college. But for the most part, they're issuing them directly to the college. And usually they'll just take your copy of your student's bill when you get it. You are billed quite a bit earlier than that bill is due, and we bill by semester. So we bill the fall semester, half of what you owe, typically due in late August. And then the spring semester is usually due January 1st. We backed it up a little bit this year because we backed up our start of our semester just a little bit to keep the kids home a little longer. Everybody's making some changes due to COVID, and that was one of the ways we felt like we could keep our students safer. So every 529 plan is a little different, but they are all very, very easy for us to work with. Well, thank you all again for joining us, and I hope that this was helpful. It's always great. If you have a question, someone else probably has the same question. So I really appreciate your asking tonight and your time, and feel free to call us anytime. This is a partnership.